Hello, everyone. I'm Kanisha Grayson, founder and CEO of The Art of Applying. I have a superstar here with me today, one of our clients, Cesar. Hi, Cesar. How are you doing?
Bless you, Kanisha. How you doing? I'm very, very blessed because of the work you've done for me, but I don't want to kind of lead into it as much. But
That's right. Okay, well, all right. You teed it up. So, Cesar, what are we celebrating today? Tell us about your results. Tell us where you've been accepted and your scholarship.
so I just got accepted into the Harvard Kennedy School's MPA program, and I got a full scholarship for the CPL Equity Fellowship, full scholarship plus a $10,000 stipend. So extremely grateful.
Wow, you're getting paid to go to school.
Yes, ma'am, I am. And Harvard was the only school I applied to. So if it wasn't for you, I had no backup schools. I know that, the consultant recommended, hey, is there anything else? I'm like, nope, this is it. And the reason why it was it is listening to your YouTube videos where you would encourage people, go for what you want. And I was actually thinking of applying to other schools, but just because what I really truly wanted, my dream school was HKS. And so I just went after that and just hyper focused on it and super grateful. And I just can't believe that I got in.
I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. I also want to just make a note that I'm very glad you applied to Harvard Kennedy School, but what I would advise is apply to at least three schools with Harvard Kennedy School as your top school, because there are people, right, who maybe did that strategy of only apply to Harvard Kennedy School and then didn't get in. And then now they've done all that work for what? So it did work out for you. I was confident it would work out for you. I'm thrilled. So, Cesar, tell us the stats you're comfortable sharing about your applicant profile. People would want to know things like your GPA, where you went to college, what you studied, test scores, cultural background, kind of those boom, 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 boom stats that people are looking up at 2 a.m. on Reddit to see if they can measure up.
So I am a very unique case. And so if you're out there and you're like, I will never be able to get into Harvard, like I really implore you to listen to this conversation. And so high school, terrible. I want to say that, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. So, but from the crime side, the New York Times side, this is 90s Brooklyn, 2000s Brooklyn. This isn't, artisanal cheese shop 2025 Brooklyn. This is very different Brooklyn. And I always knew, that I had some capacity, but just my environment didn't really foster that or nurture that at all, just because where I was at. So I went to community college initially to play football. I thought football was going to be my way out. And my first community college, like I took remedial math, like 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, right? That's what you take in remedial. You take arithmetic first day. And I didn't have a traditional kind of like academic journey. So I really had to start at community college. Shout out to BMCC, start here, go anywhere, right on the West Side Highway in New York City. But what I really did is that I nurtured really being able, once I got the opportunity to get into undergraduate, I triple majored, right? I did biomedical science, political science, economics. I was student body president, the University of South Florida, go Bulls, right? That was really kind of where I started realizing like, hey, I have some potential because I'm coming from community college and I'm competing with students that are coming in here like doing organic chemistry and Chem 1, and I've never done this before, but I'm getting the A's and the B's. So my initial journey wasn't one of like, hey, my pedigree, my academic pedigree. I didn't go to prep school. I didn't go to private school. I didn't have private tutors. I didn't do any of that. I really had to work extremely hard. And so with that, I waited about 8 to 10 years within my profession in like government relations and in public policy. And I just was working on like amazing projects, right? So I helped write legislation for autonomous vehicles, for advanced transportation technologies like Hyperloop air taxis, driverless cabs, a lot of the things that you're seeing right now, micromobility, I worked on in 2015, 2016, and was really able to then showcase like, look, I have this ability to solve complex problems and synthesize my knowledge for real world applications as opposed to like, hey, here's some book smarts, right? Which that's important, but you have to be able to synthesize it. And so through that journey, I ultimately ended up Oxford, and they really gave me the shot to say, hey, let's try you out. And then about 2 years removed from that experience, where I really wanted to get to HKS because I wanted to take that extra step, policy and policy making, that I decided to apply and I got in. But it took me 15, 16 years of being consistent, and not just like academically, but being consistent as far as changing the society that I'm in, and like really trying to work on some amazing projects that it couldn't have worked out. Maybe they could have flopped, but it worked out. And so I have a very non-traditional experience. And I think that's to say that if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I didn't go to the poly preps of the world or prep schools or anything, like neither did I. I went to community college, right?
Beautiful. And so, some specific questions I have for you, and answer whichever ones you want to answer, would be like, coming out of University of South Florida, did you have a strong GPA? What was your GPA?
Yeah, I mean, I would triple majored, right? So my
Yeah.
GPA 3.2 coming out of
Okay.
UF, but I got 3 Bachelor's of Science degrees.
Got it. Okay. Got it. And then what did you study at Oxford?
I got an MBA at
Ah,
Oxford.
okay. And got your MBA. Okay. It said, okay, awesome. And then talk to me, if you are comfortable. I think it would be good for people to know like your cultural background so that people are not trying, guessing. And then whatever about that you'd want to share. And then I know you've been through some like very major television movie level adversities, if you feel comfortable talking about any of those, just because we do have clients who have overcome some of the hardest odds. And I just want people to know that they're not alone if they have had to be extraordinarily resilient.
No, absolutely. So I'm Guatemalan. So my family's from Central America, but specifically from a tribe called the Quiche. And it's a very significant tribe. I don't know if anybody's into like Mesoamerican history, but they're the tribe who fought the Spanish when they came into Central America. So they been fighting. And if you talk to anybody that's indigenous right now, they would say that they're still fighting, right? So they've never conceded. And if you look at the population of Guatemala, it's around 60 to 68% indigenous. So I even did my 23andMe, and I'm like 55% Mayan. so so my family comes from that specific tribe. And I want to say that it took us hundreds of years to put myself into this position, and it's not an exaggeration, and I'll tell you, right? So I think that the Spanish settled or conquered in about by 1520, right? And my great great grandfather was a part of the revolutionary movement to trying to establish indigenous people's rights in Guatemala. If you look at that history, it's a very dark history, whereas it got so bad that the indigenous people would give up their children to Catholic orphanages because the children were being slaughtered, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to kind of get rid of the indigenous population. And so my grandmother's father was given up to an orphanage, but then
Wow.
the orphanages, they became overpopulated. So instead of doing the traditional adoption, they started just handing kids out to whomever was actually a part of the parish. And they were like, hey, we need help. If you can take in a child, like take them in. And so imagine like you go on a mass and then there's children there and they're like, we're overwhelmed. So, but within that, some people are bad actors. And what started happening is almost like a legal slave system, right?
Oh no.
They would take these children, and unfortunately, because there's a lot of the way that the colonialists built systems was based around race. And so indigenous, the darker you were, the more undesirable you were.
Yeah.
And so they would take them in, and some were raised like legal slaves. So that they slept differently, but they had to like clean and do what they had to do. And so my grandmother's father was in this system, and he got a bad draw. And so he was raised as a legal slave, didn't know who his parents were. But then at the age of 18, they just cut them loose. So at the age of
Mm.
18, you have all these young men just on the street. So that's why when you go to Latin America, you go to Guatemala, you see this abject poverty because it's just a byproduct of like just generational systems that were built to almost oppress people. And you're still kind of seeing that. And now my grandmother was born in abject poverty. She was like one of 14, right? Five survived to adulthood because a lot of them died as children from like starvation or disease. And she wanted to kind of dismantle that whole system. So she got heavily into politics and was a part of the party that helped to bring forward like equitable issues, and they started winning elections.
Wow.
In America, treats elections very differently. So if you win, the way that they treat that is assassinations, right? So her party won the mayoral race in Guatemala City, which the next stop would be the presidency. And before that could happen, her her people started going missing. And if you look at the Guatemalan Truth Commissions, which actually served as a foundation for the South African Truth Commissions as to like what
Mm.
to do in a Truth Commission. The Guatemalan Truth Commissions detail some of the things that were happening. So they would drug people, and then they would put them in a plane, and the plane would just take off over the Pacific and just dump people as they were drugged, right? And then so they went missing. So a lot of people have gone missing. And that was the era that my grandmother was in. So she's like, hey, people are going missing. I'm out. And that's when she
Yeah.
came to the United States. And she really put in me like this love of democracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
She never missed voting. She always was at the polls. She always had her ballot. She will always talk to me about the importance of voting, of democracy, of participation, not just like it's good to vote, but how to participate. So she
That's
would
right.
always a part of somebody running for office, somebody. So this is the language that I would hear at home, but I just kind of like fell into it. It wasn't like I was like, yes, grandma, this is what I want to do. It was just like this thing that was always in the back.
Inherited
Yeah.
almost.
It's always in the background. And so that's my background, right? And I remember when I was interviewing, I don't even know if I can talk about this, but when I was interviewing for the Equity Fellowship, they asked me, they said, hey, how are you able to kind of connect with people in disenfranchised areas? And I like,
And you're like, I am
don't
people.
need to connect. Like, that's my people.
Yeah.
That's me. Put
Yeah.
me in the hood. Put me in a rainforest, right?
Is
These
that
are
gonna
my,
be
like, I don't need,
your tagline?
you know what I'm saying? Like, put me out there, right? I did some brief work in Uganda, right? Up in Kalongo, where I was working. This is like 2010, before Coney 2012, right? During the height
Yeah.
of the war.
Well, Cesar, I'm sorry, I gotta bring you back, or we'll be
Yeah,
here
yeah,
for
yeah.
3 hours, and
I didn't want to, but I would just wanted to say, put me anywhere. They asked me that question, and I got a little excited because I was like, I don't need to be reading a bunch of books. Like, how do I connect? Like, this is here. Like, these are my people, you know? And so that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so Cesar, what was the application process like before we started working together? What was difficult? What wasn't working?
I'm gonna be honest. It's good to talk about all of the wins, right? And just follow me here. I knew from the onset, from the beginning, that if I was going to go after HKS, I needed help, right? Because oftentimes we may have a great story, but if you don't know how to actually detail that in 250 words or less, right? A lot can get lost. And so when I was like researching, I knew from the jump, I need help. If I'm going to go after something like this, I need help. So it wasn't for me, as soon as I spoke to your team, it wasn't a, hey, do you want to do this? This is like, when do I start? What level can I work with Kanisha and her team? Because I think you do a great job. YouTube videos, the emails, and you give a lot of great information for free, and I was just consuming it. And then the consultant that I worked with was phenomenal. Like you and your team, because I would just regurgitate like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I've done. And they were like, no, this is how you curate that. This is how you should frame that. Hey, delete this. Like you're going off on a tangent. If I wouldn't have had that, I am not like, this is not like a statement that I don't hold without value. I honestly think that if it wasn't for you and your team, there's no way that I would have generated the success I would have with this application.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your powerful words and your very unequivocal support of the art of applying, me and the team. And I'm so glad you did find us, Cesar. And I also just want to say that you showed up with an extraordinary level of commitment to the process and to doing the work. I remember the deadline for signing up for Application Accelerator had passed, but your breakthrough coach was like, no, we got to let this guy in. Look, he sent me a picture. He's boarding up his house. It's literally a hurricane. So if you wanted to briefly tell that story.
Yeah, I live in Florida, and we had a Category 5 hurricane on its way, and I was literally boarding up my house. I have 4 kids, right? I'm married, got a wife, 4 kids, boarding up my house, getting supplies. If anybody's ever been through a hurricane, it's not easy because just a logistical nightmare. And then you have 3 types of people. You got the people that are like, in 2 weeks, a hurricane's coming, they left. You got the people that are like, do I leave? Do I stay? And then you got the people that are like, I'm hunkering down. I'm a hunker down type person. But the closer you get to that, the people in the middle that are either leaving or staying, then it becomes a swarm to get out. So the highways are completely blocked out, or a swarm to get resources. And so I was in that whole allocation of resource, boarding up my house, getting food, water, generators, everything you need. And the deadline, and I'm like, sir, I am literally going through a hurricane. Just give me a day. Let me get all my supplies and I'm in. And thank God for your leniency, because I probably wouldn't be here if you weren't lenient with me. But that's how much this meant to me.
I love hearing that. And I do want you to know, Cesar, that it was the picture. It was the picture that convinced me. Because I was like, well, when he was like, well, it's the hurricane, whatever, I was like, well, we knew the hurricane was coming because my extended family is all in Florida. So my story starts with my ancestors, but my more recent story starts with my great grandparents, and my parents, all of whom were migrant farm workers in Florida. And so when I'm like, well, I already know the hurricane's coming. My family's already hunkering down. Why didn't he sign up on time? But then when I saw the picture, I was like, okay, he's serious. He really is boarding up his house. Let's let him in. And I'm so glad you found us. What were you searching for? Do you remember what information you were searching for that even made you find the art of applying?
I was searching for Harvard Kennedy School, specifically MCPA information. First thing that pops up is you had a conversation with a professor, right? I think even at the rector.
That was with Judy Kugel, who used to be on the Art of Applying team and was at the Kennedy School for over 20 years and at Harvard for over 30 years.
And I think the interview was very short, like 3 to 5 minutes, but that was the first one that kind of put me onto your team. And then I saw these interviews. And there was a gentleman that had just got in last cycle that was 40, right? I'm 39, I'm going to be 40. That was 40 that worked in campaigns, did all this
Oh,
similar.
Lou. That's Lou. Yeah.
And I remember like listening to his story, and then I went down a bunny hole, like a straight bunny trail of the art of applying, and everybody that got into HKS. So you had the gentleman from Mexico, you had
Yep.
him, you had
That's Mauro and
yeah.
Rodrigo.
So then I just was like, and I just kept kind of seeing myself. The more and more I heard their stories, I was like, wow, I think that I have an ability here. I think that they have a shot.
And how does it feel having gone from literally just a year ago, Cesar, to having gone from boarding up your house, wondering what's next for you, Googling, finding the first video, going down the rabbit hole, and then now you are in the video series and someone's watching it right now, you person at 2:07 in the morning watching this. How does it feel to now be the person on the other side of the screen?
I just feel an immense amount of gratitude. Like I pinch myself, like I can't believe it, at all. I would have never thought that I would get this opportunity. And, selfishly, I'm like, I know I can compete with these people. I know that I can be there, but it's that extra push, that extra
Yeah.
like that coach that's like, you need to do this. Like, do it. Like, get it in. And it is like immense amount of gratitude. Like I remember seeing that email come in, like the admissions are in. It's very bland. It just says, "Hey, there's an update,"
Yeah.
and it's like nerve-wracking, nerve-wracking. You're like, "Oh my God!" Like, all right, I'm by myself. First of all, I didn't tell anybody I was applying. Like that's
Okay, so that's a big surprise.
I'm the kind of person that like I like to move in silence and like I'm a doer. And if it works out, then you'll find out, right? So I didn't really tell anybody. This is more of like a thing between me, right? Like of course my wife knows, but that's about it. I didn't really tell a lot of people. And then I see it come in, and I kid you not, like the first word, congratulations. So they don't
Yeah, they didn't bury the lead. You were able to get the
You're
good
like,
news.
and I just remembered like three feelings, right? The first was just gratitude. Like I teared up, right? I was just so grateful, right? The second one is I just thank God, right? Like I'm Christian faith is huge. I was like, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Lord. Like, like the Pentecostal took over. I'm like jumping up and down. I'm like, Lord.
One person revival.
One person revival. And the after all that, like those two initial emotions, the third emotion, it was like this peace. And here's why, right? It's just like this, like, you know, this like peace, like growing up from where I grew up from, I'm a person that by 21, I have been arrested 6 times. Like I have been shot at, right? I'm
Mm.
homeless, where people are just walking by me. I know what that feels like to like have your belongings in trash bags, to like make a choice. Do I buy a Metro card or do I buy food? Like these things that they stay with me like tablets. And it was like all of that, it just got released. And it was just like this peace. Like I felt my grandmother passed last year. And I was like, oh man, I wish she would have been able to be here. And so then you go through these emotions, and then this peace comes to you and this gratitude. And that's what I'm going to tackle the program with, right? Because I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do for that year, who I'm going to connect with. Like, I'm going to be very intentional. Like, I can't waste this. Like, it's one thing just going, but I want to optimize my time there.
That's right. Absolutely. That was so beautiful, Cesar. And so I want you, as our closing message, to talk to yourself a year ago and all the people like you from the hood, whose ancestors are from the rainforest, who, when they go to look at the stats for the school, maybe they don't see themselves, but who do maybe see themselves in you in this interview and in my other clients and their interviews, just wondering, like, do I have what it takes? Or like, feeling like they do have what it takes, but will they give me a chance? Is this company real? Can they really help me? Speak to Cesar and people like Cesar a year ago.
Yeah, I would say number one, the company is real. And what attracted me to work with you, Kanisha, is also your background because you get it, right? One
Yeah.
of the big things you say is, yeah, you did the MBA and the MPA, but you had debt. And you were like,
Yeah.
what? I didn't know about this, and I'm going to do something about this for people that are going to be going through this in the future. And so that struck out like that, you talking
Hmm.
about your family being migrant farm workers, right? So it's not to say that I exclusively wanted to work with you because of
Hmm.
that, but I had that really strong sense of familiarity with the way that you carry yourself and that level of conversation. And so I felt comfortable. That was the first thing. And so art of applying is super real. Like I'm telling you, I don't come from a storied background, and I got in. Number two is something happens when you're put in environments that are built not for you to thrive. And it's not
Mm.
the environment's fault. That's just the environment, right? So like if it's raining outside, you're gonna get an umbrella. You just gotta be prepared for the environment. The sad part is that a lot of people that look like me or come from where I come from end up in that environment. So keep in mind that environment is not created for you to thrive
And
or
when you
for you.
say that environment, you mean the environment in which you grew up in 1990s, 2000s Brooklyn? Because at first I thought you actually meant the Ivy League environment, which I would also agree the Ivy League universities were not built to accept anyone except for a very specific type of person. And then they started letting different types of people in. So
Right.
I'm curious what you meant.
I mean, and I can talk about that too. I mean, specifically right now is your home environment, the community,
Hmm.
right? Like, say
Hmm.
at my high school, when there was a job recruiting, it was Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy, Job Corps, right? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. However, there are other options,
There are
right?
other
So what I mean
options.
is that, irrespective of the environment that you're in, it's not even the environment's fault because like that's the way that it's built. But it's incumbent on you to get yourself up out of that environment and to think very differently. That's why, like, I love when Tupac says that, you got to be the rose that grew out of concrete.
Hmm.
You have to look at yourself in that way. And so I had to remove myself from Brooklyn. You may be in a similar situation. Maybe it's not Brooklyn right now. Maybe it's a different country, but you got to remove yourself from that. And if you tell people about, hey, I want to do this, and then they say, oh, you're not good enough, or like, you're not going to be able to do that, it's of course they're going to say that because look at where they're at.
Yeah.
So it's on you to kind of challenge that and say, no, this is what I believe in myself. Like, I believe this about myself. I believe that I can compete at this level, right? So that's that environment. So if this is something that you want to do, and maybe your mom and your immediate family, maybe you don't even have family, right? Or maybe you're in central bookings, or maybe you're in and out, right? But that's not who you are. And you're like, you can actually achieve these things, right, at a very high level. And I wanted to talk about, we meant about the Ivy League. So I dropped out initially before Oxford of Brown because I
Mm.
couldn't afford it, right? So
Mm.
I was in their MBA program, and 2 months before graduation, they're like, hey, buddy, $35,000. And I'm like, I did a GoFundMe, I raised money, and then they came with another bill. Hey, you got 2 months and you got to pay us. And that's just the way that it is. And the members, or like the people that were there, that came from like private schools, had money, were heirs to things, the way that they looked at me, I never forgot it, because it was almost like, oh, you don't have this? This is, you know? And I had to learn. So I got put up, like we used to say, put up on game. Like it's one thing getting in, but then when you're in specific environments, you also have to understand there's new rules to these other environments. So I caught up on game and I was like, all right, when I'm in these positions, this is what I share, what I can't share. I got to make sure that I have the resources available so that when I'm put in a position, I'm not vulnerable, right? So just like what you said, some of them are not built for that. And I had to make a choice. I had just started my company, and was I going to pay tuition or was I going to pay my employees and my contractors? I made the choice to keep my company going, and I was never able to finish. Was never able to finish. However, everything happens for a reason. Super cliche. Everything happens for a reason. But if that wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't have went to Oxford. And then if that wouldn't have never happened, I was looking to reapply to Brown. And if I would have reapplied, I would have went to Harvard. And so, it's a little bit of my story as far as like, even when you get into a specific area, there's going to be new understandings and a new way of maneuvering, and you have to catch up quickly, unfortunately. So now, and it comes back to working with you and your team, if I was going to go to HKS, I wanted to equip myself, right? I'm in a very different position. I wanted to work with the best people, help me kind of like curate my story, strategy, how to do certain things, how to go after fellowships. I would not be in this position if it wasn't for your team. And I told you that when I WhatsApped Joe, was like, Kanisha, God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because it was worth the time, worth the investment. I mean, I got a full ride, y'all. Like, if you're hearing this, I'm not that dude to get full rides. I paid for my Oxford MBA out of pocket, working, right? Because I didn't want to fail again, where it's like I'm about to graduate and it's like, hey, pay up. And I'm like, I don't have it. I'm sorry. So that's why it was super important for me to work with you and your team and select the right team. And I'm super grateful to you and your team, Kanisha.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Cesar. You're an absolute star. Thank you for sharing your story. I know that hundreds, if not thousands, of people are going to watch this and feel inspired, encouraged, motivated, and just fired up for you putting them on game.
Absolutely. And as always, God bless you, Kanisha. And I look forward to continue to working with you.
Awesome. Thanks for watching. Are you ready to take your application process to the next level? The Art of Applying helps you get into the graduate school of your dreams and get money to pay for it. Book a free quick call from the link in the description to get started. And subscribe to our channel for more application tips and success stories.